Hi guys, it's Monk here. So today I was going to talk a bit about the stereo image or the stereo field and how we can use this to our advantage, both in a creative purpose and also for mixdown reasons. So the stereo field, if you don't know, is the relationship between your left and right monitor. It's sort of like how much of the signal is in your left and right ear. If something's in mono, it means it's like dead center and it's just that like a single signal that's coming to both of your monitors or headphones. And if something's in stereo, you've got two signals, essentially one for each ear, and your stereo image is sort of like where something is between those two sides of between the two monitors, between the two sides of the stereo field. So that's going to be like when you're doing stuff with this, it's a lot easier to hear. Generally, like the further apart your monitors are, the easier it will be able to sort of hear that panning and stuff like that. If you don't have studio monitors, or if you don't have the room to space them out like efficiently, headphones are probably a better option because you're really going to be able to hear it pass from one headphone to the other. So in like a mixdown purpose, like when I'm thinking about when I would utilize this information, what I would use, generally things that I always do in every track is that my low end is always going to be in mono, especially my kick drum and my sub bass. I would never have those things in stereo. They will always be in mono. So an easy way to do that is just stick a gain plug in, like just the stock gain, and here on the bottom right there's a button that says mono off. You can literally just turn that on and that is going to turn anything on that channel into mono. What I'd just be careful of not doing is if you put that at the beginning of a signal chain and then like the next plugin you put in is EQ but you put a stereo on, you've now made that signal stereo again. So make sure that like if you're putting a mono gain on, put it like at the end of the chain rather than at the beginning, or just make sure that you're not putting stereo effects on after you've put something on to make the signal mono, if that makes sense. The other thing that I use for monoing, I don't really know why, there's no reason for this, but Boz Digital Labs do a free plugin called Width, and I often like put that on and put it in the middle, which is doing exactly the same thing. I don't really know why I do it. I think I think it's because I had that plugin when I first learnt about this, and I learnt about putting your bass and your kick in mono. This was the plugin that I just thought to do it with because I didn't actually realise that the standard utility gain plugin just has a mono switch, which is that easy. But either way, your choice. So I sort of think of this as like a cone shape, like in terms of my stereo image and the frequencies. So if you think of like a cone and you've got all your bottom frequencies down here, so your bass and your kick drum are at the bottom of the cone where everything is dead in the center, and then the higher the frequencies go up, the more you sort of want them surround sound and like around you rather than like directly in front of you, if that makes sense. So a thing that I always do for like the high end that you can do with this is iZotope do a free plugin called Ozone Imager too, which is this. And this plugin essentially adds stereo field. Said that really badly. This plugin essentially adds to the stereo image. So like when you put the width up, you're going to make the sound go more around you. I'm going to give you an example. So I've got the pre-master of a track from me and Aztec here called Kopesh. This is actually available on my Bandcamp. I'll leave a link below if you like the track and you want to go like support it. I'll leave it there. But I'm just going to take a little snippet of this and we're going to see what Ozone Imager does to it. What I'm going to do first is take out the low end, because we don't want Ozone Imager to, like I say, you want the bass and kick in mono. So I'm going to do that now because we don't want that to start happening. We're just going to be listening to sort of the 500 hertz and upwards. So So we can hear that, and then if we add Ozone Imager, you're now going to be able to hear how the stereo how it widens. I'm actually going to turn. So as you can see, these little graphs here are like visual representations of the stereo image, this being sort of you in the middle and the sound sort of filling up that space. And they're just sort of different representations, whichever you sort of find the easiest to deal with, what makes the most sense to you looking at. So I do that often just to like the high ends, things like hi-hat, shakers, any kind of like ear candy percussion things. I'll often have this plugin on those things. Sometimes like more melodic content as well that's in the higher frequencies. Another thing that I sometimes do with higher stuff, I do this quite a lot with my hats. I use Soundtoys Pan Man for this, but there might be other panning plugins that you could use to do it. And what I do, I usually put this on rhythm step, and on I sort of experiment with these settings from track to track just to see what I fancy doing. But if you listen to this, you can hear that the audio is like moving through the stereo field around you, and I can change like the steps, the speed that's moving. Move it smooth so it like moves through in that way rather than just jumping across. Offset, so just more to the left or more to the right. And sometimes I do this with hats, like I'll usually bring the width quite in so it's more like around here, because I don't want it to go too far off, because you want your mix to still work like in mono. At the end of the day, you want to make sure all the stereo effect stuff is good, but you do want to make sure that the end mix does still sound good if someone isn't listening to it in stereo. So try not to go like too ham with it. Like you can get stuff sounding really cool and wide, but just like make sure that it's not going to sound like awful when you put it in mono. So sort of do everything within reason, I think. So then another thing you can do is I was going to say, if you record an instrument like a guitar or a synthesizer and your audio interface only has one input, you're always going to be recording in mono, because you need two inputs to be able to record in stereo, because they're two signals. So a quick and easy way to do, as you see here, like I'll delete that and just show you again. Like if I've just got one signal, what I can do is just copy and paste it. So I've just doubled up, and then here, these bits that I'm moving my cursor around, these are your panning knobs. So if I move one hard left, one hard right, and then if I get both of them and create track stack, you want to create a summing stack, because this means that you can put effects and processing on that stack directly. Now it's created sort of like a folder, if you like, and I can now like process this as one stereo signal from this track, where I can put my plugins on here, or I can also affect the two sides of the signal separately. So that's useful to know, like if you want to use widening effects on something but you haven't got the ability to record in stereo, you can make a mono signal stereo by using that method. The other thing you could use these panning knobs for is when you've got like things that are clashing in frequencies. Obviously, like most of the time you're going to use an EQ to sort of identify areas where the frequencies are sort of overlapping a bit, and you want to give everything in a mix like room to breathe and have its own space. So panning can actually be like another helpful tool. Like if you've got something that are really close together and the EQ is like not quite cutting it, you still feel like they're overlapping a bit, panning them sort of slightly like on opposite sides of the stereo field to each other can help to sort of give them more space in the mix and let them breathe a bit more as individual sounds. So that's basically all I wanted to say about stereo image, really. Just some tips there for considering that, like when you're mixing down, and also like all of these things, as always, can be used sort of creatively. Like your imagination is the limit, really. So hopefully you found that interesting and helpful, and if you did, please drop a like and subscribe. If there's anything you think I missed, any other helpful stuff to do with stereo imaging, then please leave it in the comments below. Like, I'm always learning new stuff, so like anything you guys can teach me as well is wicked. And yeah, hopefully see you in the next video.